Hello, and welcome to Full Tech Ahead. I'm Amanda Razani, and I'm excited today to have the Senior Director of Product Management for Honeywell, Sapan Shah, here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Amanda. Thank you for having me here.
Happy to have you on the show. Can you share a little bit about yourself, your background, and then maybe a little bit about Honeywell and the services provided?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been with Honeywell for close to 2 decades now. Started out in engineering, really deep diving into systems, how to solve systems problem at the aircraft level. And then about halfway through my career, I pivoted into business and the product side, which really opened up the market and sort of like opened up the world of services, go to market and new technologies that Honeywell Aerospace brings to market. Specifically within Honeywell Aerospace, I worked in what we call Advanced Air Mobility Business Unit. And if you think about Advanced Air Mobility Business Unit, it specifically targets this new growing market segment within aviation, where there are new types of aircraft platforms that are being brought to the market by new companies that are really didn't exist in the aerospace world 10 years ago. And they are coming at a breakneck speed with ideas that didn't exist just like a decade ago. And so this business unit that I'm part of is essentially a group of dedicated people, engineers, business, program management, contracts that says, how does a big company like Honeywell Aerospace take our decades of experience in building technologies for aviation and then serve this new market segment that has new needs and new expectations and new style of working. Honeywell has been in aviation for a century. We build everything that goes in the aircraft except for the aircraft itself. And so our big customers would be, what your listeners would be familiar with, like Boeing and Airbus. They make the aircraft, but we provide them lots and lots of subsystems that go into it. And we do that not just for the big aircraft like, the airliners, but we also do it for business aviation, business jets, as well as for smaller general aviation and helicopters. We've also supported space programs and missiles. And so all kind of aviation, Honeywell's been in the market for close to more than a century now, providing various different subsystems. And now we're super excited. I'm super excited to be part of this revolution of supporting this new aviation that's coming about.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk more about that. There was a recent announcement a few weeks ago. I know y'all are in the autonomous drone space. So, can you share a little bit about autonomous drones and what you're doing there? And then we can talk about some of the other key technologies y'all are working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to just kind of break down the advanced air mobility market, and then I'll also talk specifically about advanced autonomous drones. When people generally hear the word autonomy in aviation, they quickly go into this idea of skies full of autonomous drones flying by, whizzing by over our cities. And I think we'll hopefully get there at some point, but autonomy in aviation is not that. It's a very structured way of bringing in more automation to the cockpit so that it reduces the amount of work that a pilot does supporting remote operations of aircraft and at some point also fully autonomous drone operations. And then the way I and Honeywell Aerospace thinks about this market is first, I'll break it down into three segments. You can break it into further down, but three high level. First is air taxis, what the industry calls it, which is basically these smaller aircrafts that are piloted that are going to carry about 4 to 6 passengers within a city. And Honeywell's vision for that market segment is enabling that market segment to complete a 100-mile journey in 45 minutes or less. That's a very big thing for, especially for somebody living in a city like Los Angeles, and there are lots of other cities around the world where that congestion is a big problem. And so, how do we create technologies in aircraft that allows passengers to complete a 100-mile journey in 45 minutes or less? So that's one market segment. The other would be uncrewed or autonomous drones. And so these could be, we could call a middle mile drone. So those are the big drones, could be as big as a sort of like a small sedan, that can fly up to hundreds of miles and carry hundreds of pounds of cargo, and there is nobody on board. So think about humanitarian mission, moving goods from one warehouse to another, from a shore to an oil rig, medical deliveries in rural area. A lot of these use cases could be enabled by these drones. And then within this drone segment, there's also last mile delivery, where you have drones doing, your errands for you, essentially dropping something for you from the CVS, Walmart, Target, Amazon. These drones are already in operations in lots of cities. There's a big pilot program happening in Dallas, in Phoenix, and all over the world. And then there is the third segment is around military. And what we are seeing is a convergence of the technology needs and requirement needs on what is expected in the military when it comes to drones and the commercial. And so that's how we kind of like think about, advanced air mobility in a very structured way, because there's different requirements and little different use cases for all three of them. And I'm happy to kind of deep dive into what technology Honeywell is providing for these segments.
Yes, absolutely. I really appreciate you dividing it into segments and sharing how it's impacting different industries and the different sorts of
Right.
drones that you're working on, and aircraft, some with passengers and some more for deliveries. And that, when you say, is the probably the most common one that's already being used in a lot of areas.
Yeah, I would say there's tremendous, I would say, activity happening today in all three segments. Let's just kind of like, again, walk through those three segments. On the air taxi side, there are public demonstrations happening and have been happening now for last 24 months all over the world. We saw a demonstration at the Paris Olympics, which was now, about 18 months ago. Archer announced that they would be the exclusive provider of air taxi services in LA Olympics. um, you know, President Trump released a couple executive orders encouraging electric vertical takeoff and landing. This is the passenger air taxi as well as the drone. That's the name, generic name that we give to all these vehicles, encouraging eVTOL operations in the US. And essentially asking the FAA and his administration to help accelerate the entry into service by providing the right regulations that are necessary to make it happen. On the middle mile cargo delivery, there have been operations happening all over the world. Real operations. If you're in the right area in the Phoenix or Texas, you can today start getting deliveries by drones, and that's been happening for decades all over the world. And the drones on the military side, I don't think I need to say anything. If we just look at the news, there's every other day a news of how drones are being used in new ways for in war fighting. So I would say there is tremendous progress happening in all three market segments. And I would say it will become more and more common in all cities here over the next 18 to 36 months.
So, do you think there's going to be a lot of job openings in the drone sector?
100%. If we think about the amount of work that's going to be required today, if you just think about the amount of aircraft that will be produced in each of these three segments, they are going to be in the range of thousands of aircrafts that will be starting to get produced, whether we're talking about bigger aircraft or smaller aircraft. And so jobs around just engineering and design. I've been in the industry for a while, and I see so many jobs around engineering for designing these and bringing these aircraft to the market. But beyond the design aspect, there's also lots of work that needs to happen in terms of production. And that has been another big push by our current administration, is how do we encourage manufacturing in US, especially for these key technology around uncrewed aerial systems and aviation, and not depend on outside world. So there's going to be lots of manufacturing and production job when it comes to drones in US. So not only just the design upfront, but also a lot of emphasis around manufacturing in US for these key technologies.
So, are there not too many manufacturers right now in the US?
So if you're just going to think about Honeywell, we have facilities all over the US. We are headquartered in Phoenix, but we also have operations in Torrance, California, which is where I'm based out of. We have operations in Kansas, in Florida, in Minneapolis, in Washington. So we're a global company, but we have a strong presence in the US. Um, I would say historically, especially on the drone side, especially on the small drone sites, there has been a lot of these drones coming from outside of the US. And that's why there is this emphasis on let's bring in the drone manufacturing in US so that we are no longer dependent on the outside world.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's talk about safety and regulations a little bit. I know that's
Yeah.
probably a question many people have is how safe is it to have these drones all up in the air and meeting the standards and any regulations. So, can we go into that a little bit?
Yeah, in aviation, it's not about being just cool. It has to be trustworthy. And autonomy cannot be brought to the market if it's not trustworthy. And what does it mean by trustworthy? It means that it is a certified solution. And Honeywell's been building certified solution for decades now. Whether it's have taken our avionics and putting it into business jet, or taking out our engines and auxiliary power unit and putting it on again in airliners or business jet. We have been certifying these products for a while, and that's what we are planning to do for this new market segment. That's the value that Honeywell brings in our know-how of doing the right systems engineering to build a certified solution. If we kind of think about, what is autonomy and try to break it down, try to peel the onion. The way I see it is you really take the autonomy stack and you divide it into see, think, and act. And that together basically makes autonomy possible, because at the end of the day, autonomy is not magic. And Honeywell plays in all three layers. Seeing essentially means how are you perceiving the world around you as an aircraft and within yourself. And so Honeywell makes a lot of navigation sensors that understands where you are, whether it's inertial sensors, GPS, GNSS based sensors, or other types of sensors that tells the aircraft its current position with the GPS. And a lot of times now you need to do it without GPS as well. Then we have the think. So you understand the world around you. Now we need to process that information. And so Honeywell has a certified cockpit called Anthem. We're also building a ground control station that does all of that processing, provides that human interface if you have a pilot on the aircraft or if you have an operator on the ground, so that they are able to interact with the aircraft and communicate to the aircraft what they want the aircraft to do. And then finally, once the aircraft, once the operator and pilot has communicated what it wants the aircraft to do, you need to act on it. And so Honeywell makes flight computer, which takes all the sensors information, the intention of the mission, and converts that into how do I move the surfaces on the aircraft to actually do what it needs to do? And then we also make actuators that actually the muscles to making things work. So, we sort of like joke sometimes we build both the brains and the muscles, or we can think about the see, think, act layer. There are a lot of different frameworks to think about it. And most importantly, we know how to build and deliver these things in a certified manner that has built-in redundancy.
There are many puzzle pieces for it to all come
Absolutely.
together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thinking back on the air taxis, how quickly do you think that this is going to be a common method of
Yeah.
transportation across the US or the world?
Yeah. I mean, I think I started like we had public demonstration at the Paris Olympics. There was another several public demonstration at the downtown heliport in Manhattan. Archer has said that they're going to start operating tests or either their air taxi during LA Olympics. EHang, which is a Chinese operator, is actively operating in China today. They have a certified aircraft. There's also conversation with several OEMs going to operate in UAE, whether it's in Abu Dhabi or Dubai in 2026. Beta, which is another electric vertical takeoff and landing based out of Vermont, is already flying their electric aircraft all over the world, all over the US. So to me, this is not future. These operations are gonna start happening with passengers in next 12 to 24 months. Now, it's not going to operate simultaneously in all major cities, but we're going to see some big city as the launch points. And that's the super exciting part about, trying to seeing all the work we have done over the last 6 to 10 years in the hands of the communities and the general public and experience it. And that's on the air taxi side. On the middle mile cargo, autonomous drones, to me, that operations is already out there and is only going to scale up faster and faster.
Absolutely. So that's fascinating that it actually is operating in a few places. And do you have any information or stats as far as the safety of all those flights so far? I mean, because I think most people are going to watch and it's going to be a matter of building the trust.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, right? This is all about doing bringing these products into market in a very transparent way. And I would say, at least in US, these vehicles that come into market are still going through the FAA certification, just like all the other aviation products that the general public is familiar with. It goes through FAA certification. And so it's not about somebody building this within their own factory and putting it in market. Every one of the names that I mentioned have been working with FAA for close to a decade now. And so they're going through very stringent process, just like how Honeywell goes through a very strict process when we are working with FAA or EASA, which is the same similar agency in Europe. We work with them over years to meet the requirements, prove it, and then certify before bringing it to market. And so safety is extremely important for Honeywell as well as for all the OEMs that we work with. And it will be done together with FAA or EASA if it's in Europe before we bring it into market.
Awesome. Well, do you have a key takeaway you could leave our audience with today?
I am super excited about this. And I would say keep your eyes towards the sky because we're going to start seeing more and more of these in a very short while.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for having me again.
And thank you to our audience. Leave your comments, tell us what you think, and stay tuned for more podcasts about cool technology on the way.